Well, I'm just gonna go over some book club stuff. I know it's only the first chapter and it was only the mental game of trading. I don't know with everybody who's reading it or not reading it, um, the speed that you guys read it at, right? But um, like if I think one chapter is too easy to be honest with you, but I know some people work and everything else, so I just need some feedback on that. And this is just gonna be really quick. Again, it was just an introduction to like that first chapter. So it's the mental game of trading, chapter 1. Right, the first quote of the book says, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we use to create them." Right, that was the homie Albert Einstein that said that, and it's the truth, right? We can't make a mistake and then not look at it and not think about it and just continuously do it. We need to rethink, regauge, and move forward. So just a couple main points. And again, anybody that read the chapter or anything else, feel free to jump in, interject, right? Like this is actually supposed to be like a group thing with this. But if not, don't worry about it, right? But the main points based on that book, right, in that first chapter was emotion should be used as signals, which I completely agree with, right? Um, you look at Van, right? Van has the most diamond hands. Josh has diamond hands as well, and they still talk about how uncomfortable it is to be in a trade that's huge green for you. It's uncomfortable, right?
So
And we
uncomfortable.
need to use so uncomfortable, but we need to use those emotions as signals as why is it uncomfortable? Well, I'm very deep in the profits, and then we could rationalize and everything else, right? The importance of a system, right? I know I tell a bunch of guys or a bunch of my clients, especially, I'm a degen. I don't trust myself. I trust the system I built around myself, and that's what keeps me in line, right? And again, it's a basic how to use the ABC game system, which is the image down below, and there needs to be resolution. Um, that resolution is that there's an issue. There was, in the example in the book, I believe it's two friends have a fight. The friends finally make up, and it's awkward. But there needs to be a resolution. There needs to be a solution to keep moving it forward. Um, Again, C game, B game, and A game. It's going to go into this a little bit more as well. So this is just a brief overview for anybody that didn't read it, didn't get time, or whatever else. But personally, we're going to operate in our B game. Little spoiler. You're going to operate in your B game the most. So we want to label our A, we want to label our C, and label our B. But we have to understand, B is where we're going to, especially in the growth period and everything else, is where we're going to lurk the most times, right? And the big point that it made in the book, too, was what? The B game is represented by, we have impulses to do non-strategy plays. We have impulses to FOMO and everything else, but we don't actually act on those impulses, right? And that's what makes it a B game, because there's still marginal mistakes, mental mistakes that want to happen, and it's not a clear focus. The A game, there's no temptation to do a dumb play, right? It's very clear thinking. You're trying to maximize, you're trying to be efficient. And that's where we want to end up all the time. But let's not beat ourselves up in the learning process by expecting that, right? So what was the biggest value of this whole chapter, right? It was the last page, I'm not even going to lie, where it talks about mapping out your problems, identifying the roots of the cause of your problems, and correcting your problems or correcting your problem. Um, again, this is what chapter 2 really goes into. But mapping out your problem, identifying and correcting it, and everything else, right? That we go into using your emotions as signals, the importance of a system, jotting down your ABC game. All of those things come down to the overall takeaway, which is the importance of emotional intelligence. And this is only going to be found through meaningful journaling and detailed journaling, right? Sorry, Dill, I'm going to use you as an example, right? A couple weeks ago, I called him out. He was like, man, I need to stop over trading, right? Well, that sounds great, but what's the plan to actually do that? That's, in the first chapter said it too. We like to say a bunch of blatant keywords, hot takes, hot words, or whatever else, but without it being meaningful, saying I need to stop over trading because, and attach an actual repercussion, whether it's emotional, which we should, personally, I tie any bad down draw, any bad rule, right? It's a threat to me. Why is it a threat? Because it goes against my trading. That my trading is the way I make my living, my companies and everything else. So that's a very big threat, right? And that's the emotional, meaningful part of my journaling when I make a mistake. you guys need to be doing the same thing, or I feel that we all should be doing that. But also have a resolution plan. You know, um, for example, I overtrade. Okay, well, because I overtrade, I'm only going to be taking this setup and this setup. Okay, and it needs to happen here. We make our morning plans and everything else, and we reduce our noise, we reduce our focus. We use larger time frames like Van with the 15-minute, right? But again, it's about making those meaningful journaling and then those detailed journalings that's going to have the actual how do we get better from here kind of vibe. And that's going to be honestly most important. So I think everybody going into this week, I mean, I'm a huge fan of journals. I have like 3 of them by me right now. Um, Try to take a journal out and have it next to you and jot down all the emotions in your trade or anything else going on. And you'll be able to see how quickly you actually progress and improve once you start really looking at and not just using, like I said, those hot words like, well, I don't need to FOMO into a trade. That sounds really great until you FOMO into 3 of them the next day because there was no plan for you to actually be responsible and disciplined. But again, that was just like the quick breakdown. Nothing too crazy. It's only one chapter on a pretty much introductory like point in the book. But if you have any questions about how to journal or anything else or anything about the book, like if you are reading it or not, feel free to ask. If not, it's all good.
I mean, I think having a journal out while you're trading is really smart. I don't, but I post pretty much everything I'm feeling and seeing in the Discord. But
Yeah,
if you're not doing that, I think having like a journal out to write down how you feel and like what you should be doing, I think that's really smart because one, it's going to make it so you're not looking at every tick, so you're not going to be scared out by like a quick drop or a quick pop or something. And then two, it's going to make you aware of how you're feeling and what you should be doing. So I think like maybe like a good lesson or a good habit to have is once you click the buy or sell button, write down everything that you should be doing. Like, all right, I'm not going to exit until my stop loss hits, and like literally write that out on pen and pa- paper, and then or write down how you're feeling. Like, all right, this is red on me now. I'm kind of nervous, and so you're just becoming like aware of what you're feeling, and so that's going to help you trade better in the future because you're going to be realizing that you have these emotions during the trade, but you don't want to act on them. You just want to be aware of them and conscious of them and take them as signs like, all right, why am I scared? Like if you're up like 150 points in profit, why are you scared? I mean, there there's really nothing to be scared of when you're up on a trade.
100%. But
So
that goes back to the emotional issues, like we were saying the other day, which I feel, and like you brought up, where the emotional side and the psychology side is most likely the issue with most traders, right?
oh yeah.
Like I know for myself, one of the reasons why I gravitated towards scalping in the beginning and why I still struggle to hold on for these bigger moves, even when I am in the profits, right? Full transparency. I grew up, we were wealthy or privileged when I was younger. Then 2007 happened and we lost everything. So I'm very nervous about giving money back to the market. But just because that is a fear or whatever else, that doesn't make it acceptable behavior. It might be understandable. And like you said, we need to be cognizant of that, aware of that. So when it is happening in the moment, we could actually inject logic and everything else to calm ourselves down, right? And not misexecute. Like you said, journaling all your feelings are down, understanding them, highlighting them, right? How many times do you see somebody that you just want to punch in the face, right? But we have to inject logic into that and be like, all right, maybe I don't stomp grandma's face in because she's driving 25 on Sunday, right? Like I'm let her go. It's the same thing with trading, just a little bit different of an emotional thing. But um, like I think Josh, you saw it, Van, you saw it. I'm still working on it, but it's just the stupid things where it's like just defining everything in your trade. For me, like the trading mode, is it an active trade or is it a passive trade? Is it planned or untrade, right? Unplanned. Well, if all your trades you're doing are unplanned, let's say you're doing the morning analysis and it's everything's all good, or you're doing your morning plan, you come up with your 3 plans, it's all good, and then you enter in a plan or an unplanned trade and it runs against you. Well, if you do that enough throughout the week or month or whatever else, one, we shouldn't be doing that all the time. But if we do, then we could look at, all right, this is the actual issue. I only need to be trading this. This is why I'm over trading. Or vice versa. We might say, um, all my planned trades are shit, but all my unplanned trades where I'm actively managing it, like scalping might be where the money is, or vice versa, or whatever else. We also need to look into our energy level. How do we manage that? But if you are journaling, I think the three most important questions that I at least have down that that you should be journaling in your trade, not do your cool out on. But what am I thinking about, right? Because we also want to make sure that we're staying focused within a trade. It doesn't make sense to enter, at least to me. Again, this is more of a scalper active management. But what are we thinking about? How is it affecting my trading? And the important part, like Brett Steenbarger, whatever the name is from the SMB psychology, what is the amount that triggered it? Right? There's going to be a dollar amount that we start to give a shit about. Whether it's $20, $200, $2,000, whatever it is, that's a dollar amount that's going to start to trigger stuff. We want to start visualizing that dollar amount, understanding that dollar amount, and working on that. And again, feeling the emotion that comes with that, right? If it is, I don't want to give my money back, or we might get a dollar amount, I can tell you, when I was scalping for the first couple of times with a bigger size, I would hit about $400, and your boy would get the most greedy little son of a gun you'd ever meet, right? Because I know if I add one more contract, I'm going to be able to make this and it's not the right way to play in that situation. But we still need to understand how we emotionally feel in those situations, and it's going to keep us a little bit more of that stable long-term confidence. But I would recommend very much journal, 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 journal.
Same. I actually think I might bust out a journal and write down while I'm in a trade too, on top of the Discord as well, because I think that's
I
really
just,
powerful too.
dude, honestly, the nice part too is like 100%. It's super powerful because again, if we think about, I know we haven't gotten into this book or whatever else, but the mental game of poker 1 and 2, it talks about the AMA, the adult learning model, right? And if you think about it like an inchworm and how an inchworm moves, it pushes the head out, then it brings the back end in and creates a nice little bell curve range, and then the front moves out. So if all we're doing is moving our front range out, all we're doing is expanding our range, but we're not cleaning up the back end. That's why some traders, you'll have a day where you feel like a god, and the next day you're like, how did I just blow my fucking port? Like, this should never happen. I'm so much better than this. It's because we didn't focus on those back end range plays. And when you're journaling, the way I use it, because again, I have every morning I have like 3 hotspots, I call it, which I personally use to focus my improvement for the day. But I'll use what I journaled in my cooldown, and those are what formulate those hotspots. And again, our job is risk management and pattern recognition, and so we need to recognize our own patterns, and that way we could correct any pattern that might not be profitable. Because at the end of the day, if it ain't about the money, you know.
Right. You're basically only as good as your worst quality. So if you clean
Yep.
up the if you clean up the really bad parts of your trading, or like the really undisciplined and like just really shitty side, you don't necessarily have to clean up the good parts yet. But if you clean up the bad parts, then you're already making progress to being just better overall.
Oh, 100%. Think if every week you get 10% and then one day you down draw by 20% or 30%, when in reality your discipline says 5 with just easy numbers. Well, you know how much money you're saving by not like
Right.
progressing your game farther, but just removing the possibility of, winner's tilt or whatever. Like, it's insane, you know? And again, it's just by following those rules and just staying disciplined in that course.
Yep.
But yep. Anybody have questions, comments, and or concerns? And again, I think I know this might not be book club or whatever else, but it really is important to focus on your back end of your game and start cleaning those up while focusing on your strengths and making your own. Because again, the way I became profitable, the way that Van became profitable, we could give you, or even Josh, right? We could all give you advice on how we did it or whatever else. And that advice, Van's system pays. Like I think we all know that. But the way that you might have to attack that, the the adventure, whatever, the journey to that is going to be a little bit different than Van's, and it's going to be a little bit different than mine and everybody
You
else's, because
like
we're all going to have those different challenges.
basically you have to make it your own. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. And until it's like that, I think there's always going to be those struggles.
for sure.
Yeah, I can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I totally agree with the journaling. I mean, for me personally, um, my wife's a psychologist, and I've read a lot of psychology books and talked to her about stuff. And, even the best athletes, the people that are best at what they do, they're always reviewing or have coaches to teach them. And in trading, you have to be your own coach. So I really didn't even start doing well and like digesting what I was doing right and what I was doing wrong until I started journaling consistently. And I actually just went back to it, probably about 4 months ago. And, so for me, what I do, like Van was talking about, I'll like set out my plans, my point of interest, the things that I'm looking for, and to get into certain trades. And that can change throughout the day, just depending on where price action goes throughout the day. But I have my thesis of what I think is going to happen. And if it goes to these certain areas, then I'll take action based on, charts. But I actually have a piece of paper, and throughout the day I'll write down things, whether it be in my trade, what I'm thinking, because in the heat of the moment you're going to think and react differently than you are when you're not in a trade. So during those days, anxiety is going to be up. You're looking for different plays. You're maybe a little bit discombobulated. And then when I'm in a trade, I'll put like T1, and I'll put that trade, and I'll may have, 6 to 20 bullet points depending on how long I'm in that trade. And when I'm done with that a day, I'll go work out, come back, and then at night I'll review my charts, and I'll take screenshots of where I got in and out of my trades, and then I'll create a Word document. And then I have 4 different sections in my journal, emotional, part of what I was doing, what I did right, what I did wrong, and then I'll grade. And, going through those trades and looking at the charts, and it can only be from maybe, during the day, and I'll come back at 6 or 7 at night and review everything. And I'll totally forget the things that I did in that trade. And I'm like, why the hell did I do that? And I wrote it down, and I would never have remembered that I did it unless I wrote it down. So it actually gives you a review and keeps it fresh in mind. And so I'll do that throughout the week. And then before, on Sundays like today, I'll actually pull all that information and go over those again. And then my notes that I start out, I'll pick like 4 or 5 that I need to really, that I may have made mistakes or things that I need to emphasize for that week out of that note, those notes and journals. And I'll take those and start them on my new notes for the next week. So they're fresh in mind, and I can review those for the coming week also. And that's kind of what works for me. And I know everyone's different, but that's been a process that's definitely helped me a lot.
And I just want to say one thing on that, right? Is I know we might Josh, you haven't been around, but like Josh is one of those traders, no plan B, that when he says something, I mean, not to sound dramatic or whatever else, but y'all should listen. He helped me tremendously in my journey, and he's one of the most intelligent traders I know. So like if he's dropping any knowledge in futures or even general or degen, like actually listen to him. He's one of those dudes that like he's a dude. That's all I wanted to make sure everybody knew. Like that, like Benny, those are the traders that you look at that you could steal a lot of knowledge from them, and they're not greedy about it, which is super beneficial. But yeah, and then any other, and I agree with that. Like journaling is huge because we do forget. Like as much as we want to say we're going to remember this, we're going to remember that. I mean, I don't know if it's because I'm necessarily a stoner, but I can't remember shit. So having those like constant notes around, massive. Like I said, does anybody have any other comments about journaling or questions about journaling? I'm gonna pick on Dylan. Dylan, how's work? Oh shit, homeboy's blacked out at work.
Good, bro. I just closed the store.
Hell yeah. You been journaling, and how long have you been journaling?
I haven't been doing intraday journaling.
Oh, okay.
But I journal like how I felt about the day after and how I feel going into the day. I've been doing that for most of my training, like probably like 6 months.
Yeah, and like I said, for you too, I think, and not only for you, because I think that's great, and I think that's and I mean this the most respectful way. I think that's a great intro into what we need to be doing. But I would say for you at least, right, is make sure everything's defined. If you're writing something down, and this goes for everybody again, if you're writing something down in a journal, like I need to do this, I need to not do this, make sure again, like this week, try to be really cognizant of detailing that. And what does that actually mean? And what's the actionable plan for that? Because it sounds really great that I need to ride, the Bowflex every day, or every day I need to go to the gym. And I know a lot of us work out and it's great. But you could say, yeah, I need to go to the gym. But if you don't have a workout plan for what you're doing, you're just going to be taking fucking gym pics looking like a douchebag. You still have to have that plan in a detailed plan on what you're going to do. If you just walk in, do calf raises, then buys.
Who does calf raises and buys on the same day, bro?
That's what I'm saying. That's why you need to be
on, Nick.
disciplined and be detailed with a game plan, my homie. If not, you're looking like a dweeb.
I'm excited to start doing the intra trade journaling, because I notice if I do it after the day, it's like I'm not feeling the emotions as intensely, obviously. So it's like I'll forget things or I'll miss out on things,
Well, here's the thing too, is like not only with the emotions and everything else with the intraday trades, I think the cool part too is that if you catch something, right? Like a lot of my edge, like cultivated edge, and I think this is probably the same with Van and Josh and everybody else, is you start seeing small little things. Like I know Van, he does great with like bar by bar analysis, right? I think Josh, you could agree with that. Van, he could see how the bars are forming, the patterns they're forming, and get like a very intense feeling on what's going to happen. Josh, super disciplined, has his edge, has the ICT now, and one of the most disciplined traders with VPA and understanding all that shit, right? So we all have our niche, and I forgot where I was really going with that. But point being, define your shit.